Hello and welcome to another Parallel Project Training podcast. My name's Ruth Phillips and I'm here with two of Parallel's senior trainers, Carmen Campos and Lisa Regan. Today we're going to be talking about ethics, compliance and professionalism. We're taking this syllabus item from the APM PMQ syllabus for exams starting in September 2024. Welcome to the podcast, Carmen and Lisa.
Hello.
Hi, Ruth.
So, ethics, compliance and professionalism. This is a really important topic, but it's quite wide-ranging, isn't it? Carmen, can you talk to me about what you consider to be behaving ethically as a project manager? What does that mean to you?
I think probably to oversimplify that, ethics is about doing the right things and also influencing others about doing the right thing. In other words, what it could be morally, socially and responsibly correct. It doesn't stop about you being ethical. It's about what do you do to ensure others also behave with integrity and respect and with empathy. So it's quite a profound topic, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Lisa, what about you? What does behaving ethically as a project manager mean to you?
Yeah, I started to reflect on this, Ruth, talking about it from a project manager's point of view, or even the job that I do now as a trainer. Behaving ethically for me, it's about working without bias or influence. A great example is treating everybody the same and caring about the people that you're working with. A great example is, and it sounds like a silly one, sticking to break times in training sessions is behaving ethically, because you're saying everybody needs some time away from the screen. And everybody should, not saying, oh, okay, you go and have a break now, but you've got to stay on the call for the next 20 minutes. It's just treating everybody the same. That's what it means for me, being ethical, yeah? But working without influence or without bias, being the same project manager to everybody on the project, whoever they are.
When I look at the syllabus and I see that the learning objective says that this is about the ability to work consistently in a moral, legal and socially responsible manner. That's important, that this is consistency, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. Not showing favourites, not thinking, oh, I'm going to give this person more time than I should or less time than I should for whatever personal reason. It's being consistent, I agree.
Yeah, definitely. There's small scale ethical behaviour and much bigger contextual ethical behaviour. The bigger scale, we'll talk about legal, professional obligations that we need to adhere to. On the smaller, possibly the more important ethical scale is about having that integrity, is about interacting with people. So as you said, you treat everybody equally, you treat people with fairness, that when you report on the project, it's your true belief that this is the project situation, that you're not hiding things, that you're being open with the information that you provide. So it is, as Carmen, you said, quite a profound topic. We're going to cover three particular areas here. I'm going to start us off by thinking about the legal and regulatory landscape that projects and we as project managers may operate within. We're going to talk about where we could go to get specialist advice and what other sources of standards that are out there. And then we're going to talk about the continuing professional development that we all personally do and that we need to do as project managers. So one of the learning outcomes is to understand the impact of the legal and regulatory landscape on projects, such as the impact on working conditions, risk management, governance and sustainability. Carmen, can you give me some examples of laws and regulation that projects and project managers need to be aware of and need to work within?
Back to the context, it depends on the project. So, for example, majority of projects will have to comply with health and safety regulations. The organizations will have some policies that everyone working for that organization will have to comply, and a safety environment is provided. When it comes to the project will have to make sure that is incorporated in all the processes and procedures and plan. What that means for the project manager is the project manager needs to make sure that if required, PPE is provided, there have to be some risk, health and safety assessments in place, things like spot checks, reviews. So that big high-level landscape, if you pick that regulation, for example, will affect the way the project is planned and the project is managed. The other example that was mentioned in the syllabus is working conditions. And it links back to the high-level ethical behaviors. For some people, it may be ethical to expect that someone could be working on a 12-hour shift without a break, or it may be ethical that someone drive for 6 hours overnight to be in a meeting at 9 o'clock. But the law and the legislation about working conditions, breaking times, will dictate what needs to be done. And a project manager, at least as a minimum, will have to be aware of that, because that legal landscape will definitely impact the way that the project needs to be managed and the things that the project manager needs to take into account. So again, there are just a couple of examples: health and safety, working conditions, but there are many. This is why it's important to understand that legal context. That links to your point of seeking advice for that, because we're not the experts.
There's some important things that we need to think about. That a project that I've worked on, where we were implementing a warehouse management system into a 24/7 operation, and the project team needed to test this system. But of course, you need to make sure that people rest. You can't test 24/7. You can't work 24/7. So as a project manager, I had to really make sure that I was looking at people's working times and shift patterns and making sure that they had adequate rest, even though we were going through this period of testing for a non-stop organisation. So it's really important complying with those laws and regulations, but also on a personal aspect. And thinking about another podcast we recorded about team management and about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and how it's really important to get those things right, making sure that people are comfortable, their working environment is good, before you expect them to perform on a higher level. This isn't just about complying with the law, important as that is. It's also about making sure that you've got a good project environment as well.
Yeah, and it's quite interesting, especially for big projects where you work with people from different countries or different organizations, customers, suppliers, team members from different countries. What is acceptable for them may not be in line with your values. We were having a conversation about this topic being part of the ethics modules, and I think this is where it fits in, isn't it? How do you reconcile that? You need to go high level. This is the law, and this is what we need to enforce. And then how that cascades down when you work in complex projects with a lot of organizations and a lot of people in different locations is quite important to not forget, as Ruth said earlier, the small stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to jump in and say, don't forget your subject matter experts on your projects, because they will be the people that will know. Like Carmen said, if you're working with someone from a different country, don't be afraid to ask them, is there anything different? Is there anything specific that I need to know? As project managers, we're not supposed to be the experts on everything, but we do need to ask the questions, don't we? And not just assume that we know, there's a particularly difficult regulation that applies here. Your subject matter experts will be the people that will know the detail. Yeah,
absolutely, Lisa. So that takes me on to the second learning outcome then. We're expected to have knowledge of the sources of specialist advice and standards that need to be adhered to. So where could we go if we didn't know something, Lisa? What are those sources that we could go to find out more information?
Subject matter experts are always my go-to. They are the people that are living and working in the detail. Yeah, so they will have the first. But the professional bodies are a good place to start, aren't they? If you're working, for example, in the construction industry, they have professional bodies, the Chartered Institute of Building or Institute of Mechanical Engineers if you're working in a manufacturing environment, or the APM. Any other professional body would be the place to go to make sure that you've got that relevant legislation.
If you're working in large corporate organisations, legal department, human resources department, those are experts in those particular areas. I echo what you say there in terms of the subject matter of experts. You talked about professional bodies and you mentioned the APM, the Association for Project Management. They have 5 dimensions of professionalism. They talk about the breadth of knowledge that we need as project managers and the depth of knowledge, which is linked to the competence framework. They talk about achievement of qualifications such as the PMQ, commitment to continuing professional development, and accountability for your professional conduct. That moves us on to our continuing professional development. We've talked about the context that we're operating in and what we believe operating ethically means. Let's talk about the final learning objective, which is understanding the importance of continuing professional development, thinking about knowledge, skills, behaviours, and the individual's role, your own personal role in identifying and addressing your own competence gap. Carmen, I'm going to come to you first of all, because you are a chartered project professional. What does CPD mean to you in the context of being chartered?
The key intention is to remain current. Like with any profession, we're talking about professional body for project management, but as many other professions, doctors, pilots, you need to remain current. And that's for me one of the key purposes of having a CPD. And one of the examples I use in my charter program is, would you trust a doctor that last knowledge or skill it has is on leeches and hasn't ever heard anything about the MRI, for example? Or would you trust flying with a pilot whose last plane that they operate was one of the very first series of Boeing? So the answer is probably no. And that's why we need to keep continuously develop ourselves to be better at what we do. We do the CPD, it's like a cycle. You need to think about what do you want to become better at, how you're going to achieve it, and then you put a plan for it. So once you do that, you reflect, was it useful? Was it a waste of time? Does this lead me into trying to learn more things? So that CPD gives you those pointers, because if you don't think about it, if you don't take the time to step back and reflect on your professional development, then work and life gets busy and gets on the way, and it's important to take that time.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to take some time, first of all, to identify where we believe the gaps in our knowledge lie and what we're interested in developing, then actually do that and then reflect on how successful it's been. Lisa, what CPD have you been doing recently?
So the kind of things that I do, Ruth, going to the conference is a really great way of keeping current. Like Carmen said, it's really important to stay current and just to network in that way with people that are at the cutting edge of projects. I like APM webinars. I sound like I work for the APM now. I like APM webinars. The lunchtime sessions, I'm a big fan. Yeah, it just takes that hour out of your lunch to sit there and you think, hang on, that's interesting. I might go and find out a bit more about that. Conferences that, it's the one time a year, isn't it, where you can kind of revel in the fact that projects is such a fantastic world to work in. It's something as simple as just reading the magazine or reading a book on the subject. I don't think people do enough reading these days. I don't know, I'll read up about it. So I'm reading some good books at the minute, believe it or not. Sad person that I am, on construction and project management and construction. That's the kind of CPD that I get into, because if I don't know enough about it, I'll go away and buy a book on the subject and keep myself completely, like Carmen said, really important to be as current as you possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you about the conference. I find the APM conference really interesting. I like using the APM competence framework as well. Both you and I, Lisa, we're both members of the APM, and we need to log our CPD as well. I think they aim at about 35 hours upwards of CPD a year. We need to log that to be able to maintain that membership. There's a huge range of things that you can do that count as continuing professional development. I've got a bit of a passion at the moment for the role of AI in projects and project management. And so, like you said, I'm attending a few webinars, I'm doing a bit of reading. There's been a few articles in the magazine that have come up. There's some projects underway that Parallel are doing that are about AI, so I'm getting involved in that as well. CPD can really help plug those competence gaps, but it can also keep you fresh, interested and passionate about your career choice in the industry that you work in. So it's a win-win, really, for me.
Yeah,
Carmen,
fully agree.
what's some of the CPD that you've done recently?
Well, you know what? Sometimes people underestimate some of the things you do on the job that could be classified as CPD. It's a balance of things like reading and attending conferences, but just changing this new PMQ course, doing podcasts on new topics. I put that as a CPD because that's something new. It broadens your horizon and is part of becoming better and becoming adaptable and learning. It doesn't need to be specific and narrow to project management, because some of the things you do outside work could easily apply to your continuous professional development. A few years ago, when I worked in project management for R&D, we were doing a lot of products for inspection. So we use ultrasonics to inspect pipes, railways, wind turbines. My role was not very technical. I was a project manager, but for my CPD, I have to become like level 2 in ultrasonics. And you may think, well, that's not project management. But if you think that will help you better with stakeholder management, back to your point of the competence framework, that's quite important. If that will make you help better on risk management, because you're more aware of things, that could count perfectly as CPD. So I really like, Ruth, what you said about using the competence framework, because sometimes people will be like a bit like a tunnel vision. But if you look at other competencies that may not be applicable to your day-to-day role, but could help you grow or having that big picture, why not? Yeah.
Really good point, Carmen.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been really interesting, and I've been very interested to find out what you've been focusing on for your CPD, because and it's interesting to share that and to discuss that with you. That's quite a wide-ranging topic: ethics, compliance, and professionalism. We've talked about the legal and regulatory landscape that projects operate within. We've talked about you're not expected to be the expert on everything. So as Lisa said, seek specialist advice, leverage your subject matter experts, and then finally, make sure that you're continuing your own professional development as well. So thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Carmen. That's been a really interesting conversation today.
Thank you.
Thank you.